Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Witches and Wine. This is the show where we talk about witchy stuff, and we. Did you drink out of that one? Is
No,
that
I
yours?
was
Oh,
trying,
thank
I
you.
was trying to pass it to you.
Don't get in the way of my wine. Let's start that over. This is the show where we talk about witchy stuff and we drink wine. Clink and drink.
Clink and drink.
Clink and drink. All right, here we go. Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious. That is a good wine. We got a good wine for amazing people. Before we get started, let me go ahead and introduce myself. I am the hostess with the mostest, Lola Stardust.
And I'm the hoist with the moist, silent Stardust.
And we are from Children of the Crossroads, ATC, here in Spokane, Washington. And before we get to our amazing guests and get started, we like to do our little disclaimer. So it has been brought to our attention in the past that some people don't like to watch witches drink wine and get a little tipsy.
We don't get it, but whatever.
And talk. And so we have a solution. There is an X in the corner of your screen. If you click that X, we disappear.
It's like magic. You have all this control and power. It's amazing.
It's amazing what you can do.
One finger, you can just zap it all.
Yep, zap us out of here. So before we get to our amazing guests, I'm going to turn this over to my husband, my high priest, my partner in crime, Silent as Stardust. Can you tell us about the wine?
I would love to talk about this wine. Tonight, I have chosen a wine out of the Echezeaux region of Burgundy. This is one of the three most premier regions in the Burgundy region for wine. I have chosen Domaine, Coquard's, Loison-Fleurot's
Bless you.
Grand Cru.
Bless you.
Absolutely phenomenal bottle of wine. Elegant, subtle, just undertones. You get dark fruits, you get truffles, you get earth notes, and just beautiful balance. Definitely a food style wine. So if you're going to enjoy a really nice meal, this would be a great bottle for you. This definitely is more on the investment bottles price point. It's going to run you about $200 a bottle if you're going to get one, and you may even pay a little bit more. They're pretty hard to get your hands on, but oh my goodness, are they worth it? So if you really want to experience a phenomenal wine, try an Echezeaux if you ever get a chance to.
Yeah, and can you tell why you chose this wonderful wine for our guests?
I did choose this wine specifically for this group because being that this is classic French wine, these are classic witches. People have been around the craft for a long time who have helped build crafts. And so we wanted to do some foundational wines for these foundational witches.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is amazing wine. I wish they had a taste-o-vision or smell-o-vision, or I don't know what you would call it.
If you're going to see a rating on this wine, it typically scores 97, 98 points. On a phenomenal year, it will hit 100.
I don't know what that means, but it's good wine.
It means it's dang near perfect.
Dang near perfect wine. Well, thank you, honey. Mm-hmm. And this is an amazing wine. It is real. I mean, the flavor is just so amazing. It fills your mouth, and the afternotes are not too strong, and the truffles.
Yep, the truffle notes, and
I taste the truffles.
And that's what the highest quality Burgundies are going to give you are the mushroom truffle notes, but very subtle, so they're not overwhelming. Because truffles can be such an overwhelming flavor. It's the delicateness of this that should go with the delicateness of something like a truffle dish.
Yeah, it's yummy.
Oh God, it's phenomenal.
Well, thank you, sweetie.
You're welcome.
Well, let's get to our guests. So I have two amazing witches here on the screen that I am really excited to talk to. If you are familiar with the podcast called This Old Witch Podcast, it is with James Osset Gypsy, aka Osset Gypsy, or Melas, and then Alexander Cabot is with them as well. But we had a conflict of time, and so we're going to try to get him on another show. But welcome to our show. Thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Hello. So, yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you two. And let's go ahead and start with what I like to call the origin story. So whoever wants to go first, let's.
No, his is more exciting.
I like origin stories because, like I said, it's like superheroes. When did you know that you were a superhero, James? No, when did you know? Like, how did it start with you? What that brought you to the craft?
Culture,
Okay.
background, and culture. Although this is going to segue into something that I didn't know about the two of you that I'm excited about that you said in your opening and in your intro. But I'll build up some anticipation to get to that.
Ooh.
Reverse it. Yes. Our podcast now. We're taking
Send
over.
it back. Send it back.
There was no grand unveiling. It really just is cultural. My father's side of the family is Italiano from Naples and Mont Saint Giacomo,
Okay.
and on my mother's side of the family were Armani, Vlach. Unless you're from the Balkans and the Adriatic and that area over there, Greece, not many people. No, we're a small group of people.
Yeah.
But most people know more the Nepalese and the Italiano, of course. But embedded in our cultures and in our background, I grew up in the mythological city of Hoboken, New Jersey, and
Wow.
more renowned for a famous Italian, some guy named Frank Sinatra. He had a few hits out that some may recognize.
Oh, yes, of course.
And what's funny about Frank Sinatra? One little side note, since we're talking about Hoboken.
Yeah.
He hated the song Witchcraft.
Really?
Hated it. He thought it was the most ridiculous song ever. He never liked singing it, and it turned out to be a big hit for him. So he was cursed. He always had to sing it. No, he didn't like it. And this could be related ties because his mother was really well known in Hoboken in her day for a little bit of this and a little bit of that herself. My great grandmother was friends with her, Stella, and
okay.
So this is my origin story, coming from immigrants from the Adriatic. My mother's side of the family came from Dalmatia, Slovenia, the Balkan area, which then just entwines in a lot of different cultures that most Americans aren't completely familiar with unless you have family from that side of the world. And then on my father's side, all the Italians from Naples and Mont Saint Giacomo. And we were raised in a predominantly Catholic setting, but it was a very unique Catholic setting that I didn't realize how unique it was until I moved out of it and realized, not everybody kind of lives this way. And it was very, very what people consider today neo-pagan, pagan Catholic. And then, the Eastern side had the Orthodoxy in there. So it was a big mix and hybrid of really old classical beliefs mixed with the Catholic and the Orthodox. And that's just what our people did. There was a big, you want me to read your palm?
Read his palm.
No, that sounds like it has a lot of pageantry involved, being all those different blends. So am I right in that assumption?
It has wait, I didn't hear what you said. What'd you say?
A lot of pageantry at these kind of ceremonies.
Feasts, pageantry. Oh, absolutely, everything. The feasts growing up that I saw were phenomenal, and it was a lot of all of that. There was a lot involved in it, but you got to remember these people brought their cultures over from the villages and small places. And, Naples isn't so much of a small place, but around it. And when people immigrated, to Hoboken specifically, they brought all that old world charm, as I call it, with them. So even as a tarot card reader, I never used Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck. I didn't see that until much later in life.
Same here.
We used old-fashioned Italian playing cards.
Yes.
And some people had a hard time with that when I started getting more involved in New Age communities and neo-pagan communities, because I found that what those people do in those groups is very much different than what I saw growing up. And it was interesting to me, but it seemed a little odd. But I was the odd one out because, I was the minority amongst the majority. So I had to learn a few new things.
Yeah.
And so within our culture, of course, both sides, the Marona, Marona Nera, the Black Madonna.
Yes.
And the Panagia, the Theotokos, the Blessed Mother, she plays a prominent role in all of our lives growing up. It's just undeniable. And even to the point where we bring the goddess Isis into things, because we also still believed in the pre-Christian gods and goddesses, and it was just this whole swirled maelstrom of thick and deep beliefs. So as I grew up, I dedicated myself to Isis and came out to the West Coast and was ordained and initiated into the Fellowship of Isis at the Temple of Isis in Geyserville. And then on one of the pilgrimages, I made my way out to Washington, and I went up to the Aquarian Tabernacle Church and had a wonderful time there and saw some really incredible, beautiful things that I'd not seen anyplace else, and was really impressed with what I saw there. So when you said the ATC, I was surprised and I was excited, because I've been there and I was welcomed with open arms by the community there, and stayed for a little while. I was in Seattle doing a presentation on the mysteries of Isis.
Yeah, the ATC, the Tab, that's our mother church, and,
we're an affiliate of theirs.
We are an affiliate of theirs, so that's awesome. I'm glad that you are very familiar with our mother church and that whole group. Yeah, and it's a beautiful place.
It is a beautiful place. I'll never forget it. I always talk about it when talking about positive experiences and some of the community. I've seen good things in communities. I've seen very bad things in communities. And then I've seen wonderful things in communities. And I would say that the Aquarian Tabernacle Church is close up there at the top of the list of the most wonderful community that I've seen.
Absolutely.
Like proficient and a real community in the sense of the word, not just using that as a catchphrase for just all different groups of people not working together, but just stuck together. These people really are community. And when I was there, they were revealing the plans for the community center. I hope, since I was there, it was quite a while ago, that it got built and it was executed properly.
Well, we love the ATC, and they've helped us become a nonprofit, and they provide a lot of resources for our coven, which is amazingly, we need these resources. We would never know that unless we didn't have the educational part from ATC, where they teach us, these are things that are important to get your group running, to get yourself out there. So we big fans of the ATC, and a big shout out. I'm glad that you had a great experience.
Bravo.
I wanted to, real quick, before we go to Melas. I'm going to remember the month of May. Melas.
Melas.
You gave us a pronunciation in here.
Yeah, I see it. Melas. I saw that. Yeah, I keep looking back on that. Thank you so much. When you're talking about the Catholic connection and stuff, I find it so fascinating that, because my mother grew up Catholic. She's Mexican. She grew up Catholic. Her mother was Mexican. They were very, very Catholic, but there were always and there were always these witchy things that kind of snuck their way in. And I always kind of learned that the reason why they combined the two, one of the reasons, maybe not the only reason, was because it worked well together. So the saints and the gods and the goddesses, but also it kind of made it a little more acceptable that you were practicing that witchy stuff, but you kind of had the Catholic front or whatever to kind of make it not so scary to some people, even though Catholic stuff is kind of creepy sometimes too.
Well, you have to think the word Catholic, meaning universal, ended up, accumulating. Well, we live in a modern time. We're not, it's not 900 AD anymore, where, people have to still be weary. There's, more open-mindedness. Some people are more strict and, Reformed Catholic than others.
Yes.
But again, you subscribe to whatever fan club you're going to be in, and you follow those rules, right?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't join roller derby and say we should be peaceful and wear sneakers. Like that wouldn't make much sense for roller derby.
No, it would not.
And so it's the same thing with the Catholicism. Now, when I was growing up, we didn't use the word witch. There's different words in the languages for people who practice folk magic or believe in spiritualism. And the word witch, like there was a time I went to PantheaCon, and I'm going to tell the story with the fun accent and everything, because I mean it sincerely and entertaining.
Yeah.
I met this very charming older woman she had to be somewhere in the South, because she had a real Southern twang in her voice.
Yeah.
And she told me she was Strega. I'm like, oh, are you Italian? You know, Italians everywhere. You know, we don't always all talk like Tony Danza. So she's like, no, I'm not Italian. I'm like, oh, you're certainly not. You said Italian, but
you said Italian. Yeah.
So, you know, she told me she was Strega, and I was like, that's not very nice to say about yourself. She laughed. She's like, what? And I'm like, in my ears, that sounds funny. It's a branded thing now in the 21st century due to Raven Grimassi, Llewellyn books, the internet, social media. I may be a relic from more of an old-fashioned time, and I may, you know, be older than I look. But Strega, witch, these weren't nice words. These weren't good words, because they were really defining something else. The person who practiced folk magic, the person who practiced spiritual beliefs, there were just different words for them. You know, the closest word in both languages, magia or magio, which means, you know, the man or the woman who does the magic, you know, they do that. So there was just a different language thing. So I never saw that. And like growing up, the way the Catholic churches were used in the feasts, you got to remember, these were people who brought all their beliefs over from really old world places. And, you know, there was such a hybrid of the Catholic orthodoxy, you know, pre-Christian beliefs, you know, we say now in this modern world pagan, but in my world, they just all swirl together, which I know is, you know, you're more open-minded than most. Some people have a really hard time with it.
Yeah.
I couldn't pull it apart. The example I always give is, in front of my grandparents' house, in front of their townhouse growing up, there was, of course, the Madonna in the front with her arms open and veiled. And then in the back, in the garden, was this big statue of Venus, naked amongst the roses. And when you're a little kid and you ask these questions and you get answers like, oh, she's in the front of the house, she has to greet the guests, she's got to be modest. In the backyard, she can do whatever she wants. And then they tell you to go eat. They tell you to get out of here. And so, you know, this is what you were. And going to Catholic school, and when, you know, the priests and nuns, they were Franciscan, so they were very cool. They were not cruel. They were kind. And, you know, they too had their own herbal, they had their own holistic, if you want to call it witchy for the sake of the show, witchy ways, and patient with someone like me. Because, you know, when they asked, you know, Vincenzo and Maria and Julia what they wanted to be when they grew up, and they all said doctors, nurses, and, you know, garbage men. And I said, I want to be Lord Neptune, god of the sea. And they told me, well, there's one god. And I said, well, no, you teach us there's 3, but there's really 12 on Mount Olympus. And they send you down to the principal.
Oh, God.
And you got to tell Sister Marcia again why you're in the office in 3rd grade. And you tell her because you want to be Lord Neptune, god of the sea. And she just rolls her eyes.
Yeah.
It was just cultural. It's so growing up that way, seeing the gods, the goddesses, the saints, the spirits. It's not always not always a god. You know, that I discovered in neo-paganism amongst the New Age and witchcraft circles. My background with these things are a little bit different than the way I saw it there. Because I remember like talking to this one gal once at one of the big witchy stores I used to teach at and read cards at in Orlando. And I was like, wow, I'm like, you got to slow down. I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. I'm like, you're talking like you want to collect the gods like they're Pokemon. You got to catch them all. I'm like, what are you saying? And like, sometimes I couldn't relate. I understand now. But like in my journey with all of this, you know, apart from being a priest in the Fellowship of Isis and, you know, devotee of Isis, I also ended up having to stand in when the local Wiccan chapter disappeared in Orlando, and the high priestess needed a fluid and, you know, responsible priest. So she, being from England and, you know, ordained initiated in the Gardnerian style, gave me a very quick very British initiation into that. And then I was her priest when she needed me for the Wiccan circles, the full moon circles, and all of that. However, I was still at that time heading my own Iseum, which was the Iseum of the Sacred Lotus, and, performing Isean ceremonies and rituals privately, publicly, and going around doing classes and presentations and whatnot, amongst going around and also doing all my tarot card readings, and, of which Osset Gypsy is most famous for, which is the tarot readings.
Well, I wanted to add, I want to make sure we get to Melas.
Of course, he's got a great story. I want to hear it all over again too.
When you were talking about Strega and that connotation of what's attached to that word, my family dealt with that with the word bruja, because bruja people automatically think it's just, oh, it's a Hispanic witch or whatever. But that was not a good thing to be called. No. And my mom heard that word when she was a kid, spoken in, about her mother, about my grandmother. So I kind of, I understand where that comes from and how that's been adopted, but where, it is a very cultural thing. And
Well, and I was thinking, I was raised Irish Catholic. And we had our little folksy version of Catholicism that was branched off, where we had the fairies and the leprechauns and everything. So it's interesting how the same basis of Catholicism, 3 different practicing regions. And each one has incorporated local folk magic into their practices with Catholicism. So it really does pull from the old faith and the old religions into the new world of what we've become the last 2,000 years.
It's
what's fascinating about it is in all of these cultures, whether it's Latino, whether it's Irish, Catholic, Greek, German, Protestants, that label up there was for political and societal ties. But when the people brought their own things over from wherever they were from and kept their traditions and their culture alive, that was the folk belief of the people. And that's what I love. I love all of that. The devotion in Campania, like down in Naples and Mount San Giacomo, where my grandparents are from, I love the complete devotion to the Black Madonna. Hoboken's one of 7 legitimate cult centers all around the world. Not saying there's many, there's more than 7. But outside of that region, that we still have a very secret chapel to the Black Madonna. Not many people know about it. I've seen it my whole life growing up, and actually making arrangements to take Alessandra Belloni to go see it, and that I'm very excited about.
Oh wow.
And we're going to see her Thursday night perform in St. John the Divine. That's going to be magical. But with the ties in with the Black Madonna, the traditional things of everything, the Irish, the Italian. Growing up in Hoboken, it was a very small city, but we had a lot of people from all over. So like what Melas was saying earlier with Santeria and voodoo, we had a lot of people from the South move into Hoboken, and we had a big influx of people from Puerto Rico. So walking to school every day, I got to see the big shrine in front of the apartment buildings that the people built to their Santerian, their devotions. That was beautiful. You'd see the people opening it up in the morning and putting the incense and cleaning it and taking the old food out and putting the offerings back in. So I was able to see that. I was able to see my different cultures, right there in my own home and all the contribution to that. It was pretty amazing. In this 1 square mile tiny place, we had all of this. And then right down the middle were all the Indians, and we had the Hindu festivals and celebrations. Then you had the smaller branch things, like on my mom's side, like when we come from the Balkans, people always ask, so I'll get it out of the way now, especially if they see the name. Some people in America are not happy with the 5-letter word gypsy. Where we come from, it's a very affectionate term. This name Osset means Isis, and gypsy obvious. We're not Romani gypsy. The Vlach Arjumani, we nomads. You gotta look it up. We're a small group. Not everybody knows who we are unless you're from that part of the world. A majority of them now all live in Greece. And so we lived amongst those people too, and we shared and borrowed a lot of all the ways, just like we do here, just like our conversation saying right now. You just interchange different groups who all lived close. My great uncle Jack used to say, oh, James, where we lived, you had to read the newspaper every day to see where the borders were because they changed every 5 minutes. And we lived amongst everybody. We lived with, one day we were Italian, one day we were Greek, one day we were Dalmatian, we were all of these things. So it was a it's a very rich cultural tapestry of spiritual beliefs, folk magic, all the history going back into classical times with the gods and goddesses and beliefs left over from there. So it's all in here.
Yes. Well, that's amazing. I love that you I know some witches that are like that, where it's just their culture. It's in them. There's really no like, oh, on this day and this year. So, but now Melas, hello. Welcome, Melas.
Your turn.
You see why I wanted him to go first?
Yeah, we understand.
that is inbred. It's in his DNA, and we should all be so lucky to have that and have people that we know that have that, because you could learn a lot. But Melas, I've been reading about you, and you've got a lot of great stuff. Can you tell me about your origin story, how you came to this path?
Well, I will touch on that, and then we can go into the origin story of the podcast too.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
an interesting story there too. So my story, where I start from, I am growing up early years. I spent a lot of time on the reservation in Montana, so I was able to pick up a lot of the indigenous practices and beliefs from there. But then later on, we'll jump forward. I'm going to try to squish it. I don't want to be like him and take up the whole time. So from there, at the age of 12-ish, it was around 12-ish. I used to go to my aunt's house all the time, and I had an art studio down there, this, that. After school, I'd go, all of this. Well, one time I had walked in with her friends, but they were in the middle of a ritual. And I basically walked in, and I knew she was, practicing something. There was something there, but there was, with everything out and everything being right there, I was just like, I had that moment of like, I need to know. I want to know. And so, after they were done, obviously, she sat me down and she said, look, this is that, blah, 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 and told me the whole story. That backstory has an interesting story as well. So my aunt had gone to California in the 60s, like every other hippie. And that's where she met Sybil Leek.
I know that name. I know that. Yeah.
She was initiated by Sybil Leek in California.
Mm-hmm.
She ran a coven out there with a gentleman named Harold, who I never met, but then eventually moved back to New York. And this is where I jump in, and it happened there. But during that time, she was also initiated into the Long Island line of Gardnerian. And I went through all of that. And then by the age of 17, 18, private initiation with her, and been stuck this way ever since.
Stuck
this way.
Well, actually, that's not true. That's not necessarily true, because I did walk away before I reached third. I wanted to explore more. And she was quite strict in just witchcraft. That's it. So I wanted to explore more. I wanted to learn more from my family, from Montana. Other things, I went to school in Manhattan, so I was exposed to so much different cultures, different practitioners, different things, different that, which crosses lines with Alex, because we probably met each other earlier. I knew Lady Rhea from the age of 16. He's very close with Lady Rhea.
Yes.
So, our paths, of course, same with James, too. We probably all hung out at all the same time, or in the same bars, in the same clubs for a long time, and we never knew until much later. And
it was called the 1990s.
Yeah, it was called the 1990s.
I kind of remember the 90s. I was in my 20s. I was having a lot of fun in the 90s. We'll just leave it at
wasn't.
I was in high school, so I wasn't.
He's younger than me. I cradle rock. He was still in high school. I was in my 20s in the 90s. I was having a good time.
I think, well, no, I was 94-ish. I was probably early 20s.
Well, you know, it's so funny. People always say, like, younger people, you know, oh, you got through the 90s. How old are you? Oh, you look so much younger than you are. I'm like, yeah, because nobody escaped the 90s without becoming a vampire.
Yes. Right?
We're all vampires. We're from the
We
90s.
are.
You
I
know?
grew up in Seattle in the 90s.
Yeah.
I'll just put it in those terms. I literally was in the grunge scene and watched it all around me and didn't see daylight or sun for years.
There's a vampire. Yeah, when I tell
Love
people
Seattle.
when I tell people I'm 51, they go, "Really?" And I go, "I know. I act like I'm a 12-year-old boy half the time, but you know." So you were talking, Melas, about Melissa.
I know.
I love Melissa. You were talking about
You too.
I love Melissa. We were talking about, you were saying about your before you got your 3rd degree. So I want to talk about this because something that we experience. You know, we do the elevations of 1st, 2nd, 3rd degree, and we were talking earlier in the green room about we've got a strange person commenting on stuff. I'm just looking anyway.
It's good. We're strange people.
British. I know. I don't know what they're saying. You can get just as drunk on water as you can on land.
Oh, okay.
All right.
On a boat, whether on land or water.
Okay, I like that. I'm going to highlight that because words of wisdom. We were talking about British traditional Wicca, and wasn't it you that said you have a little bit of a different view? So for those, because this is why I asked this. Okay, even though I appear to be very well versed in witchcraft, and I feel I am. I'm a 3rd degree high priestess, but I'm always learning. I'm very new to coven work. Our coven's only I've only been working with coven work for
9 years.
9 years. So, and the initiatory coven work. Before that was very, you know, hippie, new age, you know, solitary kind of thing.
Form,
Yeah.
No real path.
No real path, but just I knew stuff was
Eclectic.
Eclectic. Yes. Whatever you want to call it. I call it new age hippie dippy. And I'm not saying that in a bad way.
I was being nice.
I know, right?
We don't poo-poo eclectic.
We don't poo-poo eclectic
because eclectic just means an assortment.
Yeah.
It's got a negative connotation for all you're doing is exactly what every other witch is doing. It's accruing information and putting it to use.
You just whatever you feel is, you know. So for me, when I very first joined a coven, they said, well, we're British traditional witchcraft. And so when I have told people that in the past, they're like, okay, so are you Gardnerian? Are you Alexandrian? Like, what do you mean by British traditional? So I've tried to explain it to them, but I want to hear it from someone. I know you said you have different views, but because you have different views, I don't know. They might be drunk on wine. I don't know. Sorry, not you. We're looking at the comments. It's okay. It's okay.
I've seen it out of the corner of my eye too.
Yeah. I'm just like, it's all good. It's all good. British traditional Wicca. From your understanding, what does that mean? And then tell us what your views are on that.
Well, number one, I don't use the word Wicca.
Okay, witchcraft. Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it is something that I'm very like a stickler on for me. In at least my conversations, I understand everyone uses it. I try to at least put it out of using witchcraft rather than Wicca.
Yeah.
The term of Wicca was used to sugarcoat things back in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it was.
It was never meant to be called Wicca.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, there really is no word Wiccan at all. If you look at the
there's people that have tried to convince me that one of my teachers, not in my old coven, was like really tried to push that Wicca comes from an old, and
it's the old Gaelic word of witcha.
A witcha.
Witcha.
Yeah.
And witcha. And As in the spelling, we're not too 100% sure. I mean, you have Gardner's version, which is Wica, but he only uses it like 3 times in any of his work. So he wanted it as witchcraft being the religion, not Wicca. Obviously it's grown huge in the U.S. In using Wicca and Wiccan, but I at least try to change that, at least in my circle. As much.
Do you think that it's a selling ploy by the publishing companies that just kind of took it and went buck wild with it?
Just like the word witch now. I mean, everything is witch. How many books are out there? You have Light Post Witch, you have Radio Magic Witch, like everything ends in witch now.
Yeah.
And my second part to that is lowercase. And it's funny because I watched Yesha and I was like, oh my God, there's somebody else that says the same thing I do. Lowercase witch and uppercase
witch. Yep.
You do the work, you get the big W.
Yep.
I
love that.
With a doctor, we use an uppercase D, right, for a doctor because they put the work in, because they respect it.
Yeah.
So that's the two difference. So the eclectic, what we were kind of talking about, falls under the lowercase witch.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make you not using it, but we've put in a lot more work than looking online.
Yeah.
And I think we should have the respect for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And what do you think about the just real quick, because I want to get to some other stuff here. But what do you think about first, second, third degree kind of stuff? Because we are a coven that does first, second, third degree, and do you feel that it's, what's the word? Hierarchical, kind of.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's important. There are a lot of people who stop at second.
Mm-hmm.
When I first was initiated, I stopped at the first because I wanted to learn more. And so I never can. Well, I stopped in the middle of second, basically. My aunt was a little different when it came to most things, and that's because it was kind of more family rather than coven based. It was still coven based. We still had, but it was more of a close knit type of situation. But she knew that I was interested in it. She knew that I wanted to. That it was me. It was just who I was and what I believed, and it worked for me. And then I wanted to learn more from other places, which led into the folk magic aspects we were talking about earlier, and led into other things and this, that, and the other. It wasn't until recently that I had this, and I hate using the word because it sounds, cliche, but the calling to go back to BTW for structure, It was missing structure. And it was interesting enough that I was doing a ritual on my own. And I hit a plateau in my life magically, and spiritually. And I just didn't know. And then this one time when I put out that question, like, where do I go? What do I do? I'm doing this ritual, and everything that I learned 20 years before came back in that ritual.
Yeah.
And just automatic. It was, and I'm like, what's going on? But I didn't want to go back to gardening. I didn't want to go back to Horsa. I didn't know what I wanted. And I started really looking into Alexandrian and seeing the differences, understanding the differences. And one thing led to another. God has put some people in front of me, and that's where I want to finish my third. So that's where I'm working towards now.
Okay. Yeah.
Very cool.
Switch. I did the switch. I don't believe in duels, which is very different than most people. I don't believe in duels, or jumping the ship to get to the shore 100 times. I do have another initiation in things, but I stick with one. If it resonates with me, then I believe in it. So that's where I'm headed now. But as for stopping. I may stop at second. I don't want to coven. I don't want to go on, and um, hive off, and have my own. So I may just stay at second and not.
Do you feel that when you become a third degree, because for me, we have a third degree that's in our coven, a third degree high priestess, and she has no desire to hive, and she's just a forever member in our coven, which we love. And she's like, I'll be in your coven till I can't be in your coven anymore.
Like where I want to be now. Again, we were kind of talking about pulling away from the broader world of things and, kind of sticking smaller and local. And that includes in my own personal life as well.
Yeah. I want to talk. Yeah,
I'm just going to pay attention to it.
Yeah, I know. We've got some crazy.
We know that
crazy. Not crazy. Just some interesting.
Didn't I say?
What are they? I'm so curious to hear them.
They're in the
unique people. Bring out other unique people.
Yeah, I love it. This is some of the most interesting comments I've seen on our show. Okay, so
yes.
Melas. I know you bring them out. I love that. Melas, I want to talk about your hoodoo candle magic, your spirit communication. You were initiated in Lukumi? Lukumi. Am I saying that right?
Yes, you got that right.
Lukumi. Okay.
Yes.
Lukumi. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. Lukumi is no one is drunk. Not yet. I mean, I keep drinking.
I'm working it. Clink and drink to no one is drunk.
So Lukumi is an ATR, African tradition religion, that is very connected with the Santeria, except for the Lukumi version, or Lukumi path is a little bit more traditional than it would be in Santeria. So it's more Cuban based, but more traditional rather than heavenly saint oriented.
So it's not. Okay, so for some of the people that are watching, can you really quick? You were saying Santeria. Can you explain what that is real quick? And
so Santeria is kind of like an umbrella term, as most people would use witchcraft. As I said, I do not. But as most people would use witchcraft, it's kind of an umbrella term that's been lobbed onto a lot of the African tradition religions that come out of Cuba and the Caribbean, not Haitian, not voodoo. Is completely separate from that, but there's similarities.
So is it more Ghanaian or Ivorian compared to other ones?
Nigerian,
okay.
Yeah.
Nigerian. It could roll over into the Congo a little bit. It's usually more found around that vicinity.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Hoodoo and these kind of folk magics and everything are one of my absolute favorite interests. I am so enamored by this stuff that I like to learn more and more as I can. So I apologize if I wrote down on this one because this stuff fascinates the shit out of me. I'll be honest.
The hoodoo candle thing was a totally separate thing, and that was during that time while I was in high school and explore and branch out. One of my schoolmates, his grandmother was a Mamba, and coming from a witchcraft background, I walked into their house just to go after school, and was like, I know what's going on here. It was his grandmother's house, and we had this. I stayed for dinner, and as I do, blurt things out and just blah, 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 and asked and just been like, boom. But because I had such a background then that she didn't expect from a high school white guy, and she basically turned around and she said, I'm going to teach you this.
So cool.
And the candle magic that I do on a regular basis for myself, for clients, for whatever, the sigils, everything else is all based off of what she taught me to this day. So is it out there? yes, but not the process.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, you guys are so amazing. But I want to get to This Old Witch podcast because I mean,
We had origin story there too.
yeah. So let's talk about your podcast. How did this happen? What is it? Where can we find? Please tell us all about your podcast.
So
Go.
the origin story of the podcast was a COVID baby.
Okay.
So, and it was by accident that it happened that way. Prior to that, months before that, well, James and I had done a podcast prior, the year, 2 or 3 years prior to that.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I enjoyed it. And then I, kind of let it rest and did my own thing. And then was like, you know what? I want to kind of go back to this. Where do I go? What do I do? What do I want to do? And late at night, when you know what happens when you sit up late at night and you put on TV, the weirdest things come on. Well, This Old House came on, and I said, "That's it." And I went with that, and I called up Alex. I had known Alex, for years, and I said, "I have a thing for you. Are you interested?" And boom, and then COVID hit, and it just took off. We went from just starting out. Obviously, we had a couple of followers that as I put it up there and did the logos and everything. And then literally after our second show, we went from, let's say 100 listeners to probably 1,000 in 2 shows.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Wow.
Yeah. So it grew and grew. To this day, right now, we're at 200,000 listeners worldwide.
Podcast goals, thanks.
Podcast goals. Goals.
It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work to keep it up, keep it updated, keep people interested.
Yeah.
We're on our 5th season. We're starting our 5th season. It will be Summer Magic. That's going to be I'm sorry. Our first one's just going to be introducing James because he's new. It used to be me and Alex. I wanted to change things up and add somebody new. And to give, our schedules, Alex and mine schedules are a little bit wackadoo. So, it kind of gives a breaks for us to have an extra third person to kind of put around. So if I can't make it, then they can do it. Or if James can't make it, then me and Alex can do it.
Yeah.
Gives that nice little feel. But we also add another dimension. Alex is a Cabot, which is an American tradition.
Yeah.
And having me, which has... Alex has a lot. He's another one too. He's Cabot, which is an American tradition. He's Gardnerian. He is New York Wicca. He is Lukumi as well. He is. He's got a whole bunch of things too. So
I didn't know he was Lukumi.
Oh, we talked on. We did a Bella Donna Laveau, the archpriestess of Aquarian Tabernacle Church, and me had a show on the cauldron.net that Melissa Anderson, who's in our studio audience, we did a thing called Candid Chats with Bella, and Alexander was one of our guests. And I remember he was talking, when you said New York, oh my God, him and I talked about like the music scene.
Yeah.
And
that's our conversations every day.
So fun. Yeah.
So, and then it just grew. And then this, like I said, this season we're bringing James on because we wanted another dimension between Alex, and me and Alex are both Virgos. So we're also very, he calls me the bad cop and he's the good cop. So I was like, well, let's bring somebody new in. And we were going to bring an Aquarian in who's going to shake it all up. So
James, you're an Aquarius?
I am, yeah.
You're an alien. I love that. I love Aquarius people.
Aquarians are some of our favorites.
I love them. I call y'all aliens from the bottom of my heart.
That's how we feel.
Yes, you're out there. Yeah.
I'm an Aquarian moon, so I get it.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
See,
wow, an Aquarian moon.
It works though because Virgos tend to reel them back in. It's like, hello, Jay. Hello, we're over here.
I do agree. When we worked on the 4 of Cups podcast show together, which, funny enough, you can still find it on Spotify if you want to hear that. Yeah, it's still there. It lives there. We had a great rapport. We had a really good time doing that show. The both of us come from not just metaphysical and esoteric background so confidently, but also promotion and entertainment. So it was nice to work on both professional fronts together to create something holistic that worked, because we made magic with that show. This will be the last I say it because I want to focus on the new one, but just to show, we made magic with that one without even knowing it. I remember the year we went to New York City Witch Fest, and we thought we were introducing the show to the public, but the public was introducing themselves to us because they were already listening. So when I was given the opportunity to be on this podcast, I jumped on it because we had such a good time the last time, and it was such a good rapport, and the friendships and the working relationship we built in that time. Outside of the podcast show, I mean, we've done some pretty interesting things together too that were successful. So, I look forward to this. I look forward to contributing my little soapbox corner.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Well, oh my gosh, you guys. So I could just, wait, before we go, because like I said, we might go over an hour. James, I want to talk about the Black Madonna.
Please.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, first you were talking about Isis.
Yeah.
So I've talked about this with people, and I thought like a lot of people already knew this, but isn't Isis considered like the Black Madonna? Because she's the Virgin Mary before the Virgin Mary was, because when she's holding her son and all the pictures of, do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. The icons and the images do borrow and share and create a continuity for sure. The difference is, I know it's very easy today to see two very similar pieces of religious and sacred iconic art and go, oh, they're just the same thing. Yeah. And I've encountered people that just simply go, Mary's just Isis. And I'm like, this, you can't just flippantly say that, like, the sky is blue, Mary is Isis. Like, you can't throw it together like that. Of course, there is a beautiful continuity, but I think each deserves its respect as an avatar of, a bigger sum, of a bigger whole. And Isis could be absolutely looked at as, well, one of the first Black Madonnas, especially she's an African goddess. And, most of her statues were made of basalt, which were black stone and considered very highly religious and sacred to the ancient Egyptians.
So what I want to say real quick is, that was my misconception that, Isis is the Black Madonna. Then I read this amazing book about the Black Madonna. I can't. Oh gosh, I can't remember. But
there's many. I understand. That's why I was just curious. Maybe I haven't read it.
I read this book, and it was actually talking about that Black Madonna in what country? It was
probably France.
Was it France? I feel like it was.
Yeah, she's the one that's the most popular in the Western world. There's in southern Italy alone, and this is just southern Italy, like where we're from. There are 7 Madonnas, 7 Black Madonnas. They're called the 7 Sisters. Each one represents a different place and a different spirit and a different entity. They all come together as one. The beautiful thing is the Black Madonna helps conceal the power of Isis or various goddesses from pre-Christian times into a holy relic for worship. There are rumors and legends that at one time when the Christianity was taking over, that in the church that was a temple converted to a church, they had a statue of the Madonna and they had a statue of the Black Madonna, and the more pagan inclined people could go pray over there, and this is how people kept peace. This is a legend. Nobody knows if this is true, but it's such a powerful lineage. It's a continuity. Isis herself changed. I mean, she's been around for thousands of years. She's known as the goddess of 10,000 names. Her image, face, and name changed. And what a lot of people don't know is, I always tell people, don't get stuck on Isis in her Egyptian Las Vegas showgirl look. She also made her way deeply into Europe. And why her history and her religion isn't studied next to Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and Buddhism, I don't understand, because it wasn't like just a little thing that, you know, was a niche thing. It was a world dominant religion in its day, you know, and it just got absorbed into Catholic, you know, to Catholicism and to Orthodoxy in a strange way, because she was in all of these countries, and she really did become the artistic role model for what would later become the Virgin Mary in Christianity by artwork. The image of what we see of Mary is a lot left over of the echo of Isis and the goddess from these cultures previously. But then we got to remember those cultures took an Egyptian goddess and dressed her up in their way. So it becomes many layered. And that's why she is no man hath me unveiled, because you'll never be able to completely unveil her. She'll just keep throwing mysteries at you until you get tired.
What wasn't there and I apologize, I should have done my research beforehand, but like I said, we had a very busy day, and I'm just glad that we are here with you. Wasn't there like a story of, I want to say like Switzerland, or there was a fire of some temple, and that Madonna like burnt and turned black. Do you know what I'm talking about?
There's Our Lady of Echezeaux. There's
that's the one.
There's
that's
you know,
the one.
Montegravine. There's a lot, and a lot of times they do explain that the Madonna becomes black because of candle soot or because she was on fire. Some of them were buried, and you know, over time, from being buried for a long time, you know, they got like that. The paint got ruined. Either way, again, legends. And this is the thing that keeps us searching the mystery for her, right? Yes. We love her. We get called by her. We keep going. I've always seen the statues actually painted very dark brown or black. And, you know, this could refer to hidden African goddesses in a Western European culture. And, you know, and especially in Italy, where, you know, in Hoboken, we still have, you know, Marona Nera. There's a Sicilian one we have in Hoboken. And she's beautiful, and she is black. And Sicily is, you know, close to Italy, close to Africa. There's a lot of history in that island. There's Greek history, there's Moorish history, there's Italian history. There's a lot. It's not just one thing. And so, you know, in growing up with that, and growing up with the whole like Before the Temptation of Christ movie of Mary Magdalene, and you know, the whole idea that she could be married to Jesus, we kind of explored those things. The easy way to say it, that during the Dan Brown explosion, when the Da Vinci Code was becoming popular, I remember being on a plane going from Orlando to New Jersey, so Orlando to Newark Airport. And I had to sit in the middle, and there was a guy sitting next to me who had the aisle seat. And I thought, let me make friends with him in case I have to use the restroom. I don't want to be a pain in the neck. But he was reading the Dan Brown book, you know, the Da Vinci Code. And he's like, no, it's okay. He's like, I hope you don't mind. I don't want to chat. I'm really into this book. And I said, oh yeah, you know, a lot of people are really into this. This is becoming popular. He's like, it's fantastic. I can't tear away from it. Now in my lap, I had R.E. Witt's Isis in the Ancient World. I was reading that for the 100th time. And he's like, did you read this book? I'm like, no, not really. I'm like, I kind of got a gist that, you know, it's about the Black Madonna and Mary Magdalene and Jesus being married, and they give birth to a daughter, Sarah, who becomes Saint Sarah. And the guy just slammed the book and was like, I didn't get to that part yet. You told me you didn't read this. And that showed me my ignorance, that I knew these things growing up. Not everybody believed it, but it was there. It was in the culture.
The last 20 pages of the book.
You ruined the plot.
I did it again. 25 years later, I did it again. Great. Cycles. So I didn't realize that the guy wouldn't even look at me. He turned to the way, kept reading the book. I felt like such a heel. I really felt bad, but I really didn't know that people didn't know that. Because again, it's in the cultural background, you know, it's there.
Yeah.
So that's where that hodgepodge and blend of, you know, some people would be like, this is heresy. I don't want to set up a wrong picture either. Growing up where I come from didn't look like Hogwarts. People weren't going to witch school. No. We did believe in folk magic. We have a lot of superstitions. We did believe in going to the old lady down the street before we went to the doctor.
Yeah.
You know, all these things were like that. These were poor people. I grew up amongst poor immigrants, like, you know, Sophia Petrillo, picture it, Hoboken, 1978. And so,
Golden
you
Girls
know,
reference.
it was like that. So it was just a little different. There was a prayer and a spell for everything. And everybody believed in a little bit. My aunt was into astrology. My grandmother was into numerology. My grandmother didn't believe in any of it.
That was my Mexican grandmother. She was the one you went to. She made the weird. My mom grew up with the if you had a you remember my big fat Greek wedding?
Yeah,
where
of course.
He sprayed Windex on everything.
Yeah.
So my grandmother would make this really stinky poultice.
Yeah, poultice, yeah.
And put it on wounds, put it on anything, and it stunk. And so my mom said her and her siblings smelled this I don't know what it was made of, but it would heal shit. And she was like, that's just what we did. And
that was medicine.
Yeah,
you know, it was funny. My dad came over to have coffee one day, and I had a beautiful apartment in a big high-rise overlooking the Hudson River in New York. And my dad went to go look for the sugar or something in the cabinet, and I had all these tincture bottles. He's like, what's this? And I'm like, oh, I'm making tinctures. He laughs. He goes, wow, you know, I haven't seen that in a long time. He's like, you know the summer house we had in the backyard? I was like, yeah. Because in the summer house in the backyard, my great-grandfather and great-grandmother used to make olive oil and wine. And it was an outdoor kitchen so that they can cook out there in the summer instead of inside the townhouse. But he's like, my grandmother used to make all this. He's like, with the herbs and the roots, right? You put alcohol in it. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, this is medicine. Good.
Yep.
I'm glad you're still doing it.
I love that.
It was just that. I mean, that might sound simple to very ceremonial magicians who might watch this show, but it was an important part of our heritage and our background. Then on my mom's side, because we have such a blend in the Balkans of Greek, Egyptian, like I said, we're from Dalmatia, the Vlach and the Armani in our family. These were people who traveled all around, and you know, they caravanned it everywhere. I mean, you know, my grandfather, you know, lived here in America. He joined the military, and you know, he was in the Navy. They were more modernized than maybe his parents and great grandparents before then. They were the ones who wanted to get out of there before World War I and World War II. Things were a mess over there. Yeah, I had to learn the history, you know.
Absolutely.
And hear all the songs on the guzle back there, and you know, hear all about it. But it was the astrology, the folk medicine, the folk magic, and all of these things, these beliefs that all just swirled and blended into one, you know. Whether it's the difference of the Black Madonna, whether it's Isis and her influence in all those places. I remember my grandfather used to, instead of cursing, would say cheese and crackers. Yeah. Or look up to the sky if like something happened with the lawnmower, be like, almighty Isis. And this what they would say, you know?
I love that.
We had a funeral for a statue of the Madonna that broke into 3 pieces when a cousin of mine accidentally knocked it over. We had to have the priest over and bury it and mummify it. It was a whole ritual.
Oh, that's amazing.
And you know, so these were funny things that when you grow up, you just keep within your family. I went on to, you know, establish lyceums and be part of lyceums and be in covens and kind of help co-run covens with other witchy friends. But for us, this stuff kind of stays in the family. It would almost be like your family is your coven. These are the people you really trust most, and these are the people who, you know, you just know the stuff because it's there, and you know it's there. But going back to what I was saying, not everybody completely believed all this stuff either. There was very staunch Catholics, there were very staunch non-believers. Everybody was different, but it was still left over from that day. And the power of music and chants and meditations, rituals, novenas, rosaries, you know, all this stuff just was, you
novenas. I'm very familiar with that.
Yeah.
I want to, oh my God, you guys, we could do another show. Cause I mean,
let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. You have been amazing. I want to bring in, you will be presenting at the Summer Magical Fest.
So This Whole Witch will be live from Summer Magic Fest. Oh, look, there's those lovely ladies now.
Yes.
because of, we do things just like you guys, where we can tap in from different areas, stuff and that. We're going to be going live from there through there, if that makes sense. So there's that. But Alex will be presenting. I will be presenting. James, who knows if he's going to pop up maybe somewhere. I don't know. We shall see. So that's that.
Well, ladies, the creators of Summer Magic Fest, would you like to tell us about Summer Magic Fest? When is it? Where is it? What can we expect?
Let's do this.
Hey. Okay, so we also are actually at our host hotel right now, so we're just giving you a little tour of our.
Ooh.
I was curious if that's where you were.
Yeah.
I was going to ask too. Yeah.
Look at that.
Yay! And we're going to go out and sit by the pool after we finish talking to you guys. So we just had a meeting with the site coordinator who's super excited. She said the staff are looking forward to the event.
You're breaking up, hun.
Okay. Anyway, it's June 8th through 11th in Orlando. We are right close to the airport, so there's a free shuttle. It's easy to get here. Great location with tons of amenities nearby, like restaurants and bars and stuff. And we're really excited for.
What's the name of the hotel?
The
Doubletree.
Doubletree. That used to be my backyard. I used to live right off 436 and Semron over at Tuscany Bay. I lived in Tuscany Bay, and I also lived in the Arbors across the street from there. Yeah, I'm very familiar with that hotel.
Old stomping grounds.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you can show us around if you come down.
Would love it. Hey, look, Islands of Adventure, Lost Continent is my alma mater. That's where I got my big breakthrough publicly, and with events and TV and radio and publications and stuff, because of doing my tarot readings over at Mystics of the Seven Veils over in Lost Continent.
Oh wow!
Sounds like you belong here. Yeah.
I was just there. Actually, I just came home a couple of days ago. I was there for 10 days doing readings over at Universal.
Awesome. Wow. Okay. Well, yeah, the website has a full schedule of workshops, rituals, events, concerts, receptions. SJ Tucker. Alexian is our other concert at the meet and greet.
Trish, we can't hear you,
Trish,
hon.
we can't hear you.
You got to center on the camera.
Shoot. Okay.
It's
all
a
right.
directional camera. The sound. You got to point the camera and hear the sound. Yeah.
Anyway. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. No, we couldn't hear Trish.
Oh.
You got to turn.
So for our headliners, I was saying we've got Melas and Alex and hopefully James, but we got Tucker concert where we're gonna have a fairy frolic, and Alexian is gonna be our our meet and greets, and we have Yesha and Stacy and all those people you've already interviewed, and we're so excited.
Yes, we've been helping promote the Summer Magic Fest. And hopefully maybe that means next year we will get some discounts and maybe do a witches.
You better believe it.
We can do a witches and wine from the festival. So yeah, awesome. All right. Well, I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, we're good? Okay. Well, oh my gosh, you guys, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Like I said, we could just talk. I mean, I could sit here and talk about the Black Madonna forever because I'm still learning about it. I'm fascinated with it. I had no idea it was so widespread. I've only read about it in certain areas. So, I mean, James, if you're on Facebook, find me. I think we're friends. I don't know. Send me some cool books and stuff.
Absolutely.
Fascinating to me. And Melas, oh my gosh, I love your whole British traditional, your folk magic, the hoodoo stuff. Yeah, you both have been just amazing guests. Thank you so much. And so we want to let our viewers know for our coven, Children of the Crossroads, we try to provide, we do a lot of community things. We do a lot of online things. If you're interested in helping us grow our coven, grow our church, and grow our community outreach, you can actually donate to our Venmo, which is venmo.com, COTCATC. We also have a PayPal, which is PayPal me at COTCATC. It is not required, it's just appreciated. And we are a 501c3 nonprofit. So it's, what do you call that?
Tax deductible.
Tax deductible. I've had a little wine. I'm forgetting words right now. Also, if you want to know all the things that we do in the community, if you want to be a guest on it, yes, yeah.
What is it? Click and drink.
Clink and drink. Clink and drink. I also have a banner that says Lola loves wine, because I do. If you want to know more about our show, about what we do, if you would like to be a guest on our show or you have suggestions, you can email us at
crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
I'm sorry, what was that?
That's crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
Remember, please, everyone, be kind to one another and always walk with the goddess. And until next time, blessed be. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank
Ching,
you.
ching, ciao. Thank you.
Drink and drink.